You want me to do another one of these?
Yeah, just do the lines.
I mean, you're sure this is the right script, right?
Yeah, just roll with it.
Okay. Watch as this summer, for the first time ever, the American White House comes under attack. Sir, your spur-of-the-minute meeting with the Agabanian Prince, Prince Ali Ababwa, is about to take place.
You mean the one that we arranged in exchange for that $500,000 donation to the DNC?
Yes, sir. The anonymous, barely legal, large-scale, unannounced donation from an anonymous benefactor we exchanged for a private meeting with you. The anonymous benefactor, he'll be arriving in the next 15 minutes. Sir, it's him. It's the benefactor.
Tell me, Miss Secretary Lady, have you gathered the intel I asked for?
Yes, sir. I've done a full background report on your so-called anonymous benefactor.
And?
It seems he's totally on the up and up. His name is Prince Ali Ababwa, and he's from the magical Oasis Kingdom in the desert.
Fascinating. But where? What desert?
Well, I'm not sure, actually. You see, we know it's somewhere along the River Jordan, but we've never really been given the specifics on where it is. It's so fascinating, really. There's a whole discussion online about it. People are using details from the movies and the songs to try and determine where Agrabah really is. You've got to admit, the Disney...
Excuse me. I did not mean to interrupt your discussion, but my country's name is Agrabah. Again, I apologize. I hope I have not made you feel like decadent Western fools.
Oh no, you're fine. I don't feel like a decadent Western fool at all. We're just happy to have you here. I've heard you're such a wonderful singer. Maybe you could sing for the president. It is his birthday next week. Oh, or did you need an elephant to sing on? Or no, that's silly. I'm sure you can sing just anywhere. You don't need an elephant to be able to sing. That's stupid. Or wait, no, do you? Oh God, I'm so sorry. I wasn't meaning to be offensive. We can get an elephant. Parker!
Yes, Secretary Lady, sir?
We need an elephant! An ASAP, Parker!
What?
ASAP! It means ASAP! Which means hurry the up! I'm so sorry about that, Prince Ali. We should have an extremely fancy elephant here for you in no time, sir.
Aha! You have fallen right into my trap. I knew that your American White House's beloved Mrs. Secretary Lady would know that I wish to sing in Agrabah's world-renowned operatic style, and that in order to do so, I would need two things: a warm glass of yak's milk, and an elephant on which to stand, so that I could project my voice properly.
Oh, no! I forgot about the milk! Parker! We need yak's milk! Fast!
What?
I need you to find a yak and milk it! Milk it like your mother's pension check!
What?
Pension check! I'm saying that your mom is old! Your mom's old, Parker! Now go! Go!
Aha! And just like I planned, while you silly Americans have been wasting your time trying to milk yaks and ordering decadent American elephants, you have made the critical mistake of allowing me into your White House.
Wait, you're not Prince Ali?
No, I am not.
Oh, my Fruit Loops! It can't be, can it?
Perhaps.
Jeezy Applejacks, you're not saying that you're him, are you?
Maybe.
Oh no! This is Cuckoo Cocoa Puffs! So you're not really from Agrabah?
No, I'm from Agrabah. But I'm not Ali.
Oh, crisscrossing Rice Krispies! You're saying you're not beloved carpet-riding singer-songwriter Prince Ali Abwabwa? You just disguised yourself as him by wearing a crimson cummerbund and a tiny hat? You're actually Aziz Ababwa! You're a terrorist! And not just any terrorist, you're the biggest terrorist in the world!
Oh God, no, what has he done?
Almost nothing up until now. He got busted for a small-time jihad at a 7-Eleven in Brunswick. Ended up doing a 3-year down in Guantanamo, but that was before the Harold and Kumar incident. He's been unaccounted for ever since, sir.
Then how is he the biggest terrorist in the world?
No, I meant big. Like physically large, sir. I mean, look at him. He's huge. That was right. Standing at 7-Eleven, Aziz Ababwa was a giant of a man. He had grown up so large that he would have to physically plan his entrance and exits to every room that he ever encountered. Soon, however, this encumbrance became a strength. His keen eye for entrances and exits made him a natural thief, and with his height as a bonus, he found that he could easily disguise himself as a tree, a balcony, or sometimes even a coat rack. The coat rack disguise was his favorite. It allowed him to sneak up close on his victims. But now, this disguise, this Prince Ali, pretending to be Prince Ali, had gotten him everything that he had ever wanted. The White House was under his control. Everything was going according to plan.
Secure the perimeter. I don't want any cowboys coming in here half-cocked, all bang-bang, shoot them up with their guns in the air like a bunch of John Wayne wannabes. You hear me? No surprises. Quickly, tie those two up. Take them to the bunker.
Oh yeah, sure there.
Hey, careful there. Don't go tying those too tight. You don't want to go cutting off their circulations now, you know.
Oh yeah, circulation's very important.
Quickly now, to the bunker. Ow!
Oh, sorry there.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. With the White House under attack, there was only one person who could save the day. Save the president and save America.
Doctor, attending room 3.
This doesn't make any sense. What the happened to my face? My beautiful face. Why, Raoul? Why? Raoul?
Gerard! Hey buddy, how's it going?
No, Raoul! No! My beautiful face!
This is dumb. Gerard's too banged up from the last movie and Millennials already did this movie. We don't even have a script for this one. Or a lead character for that matter.
What about Mitch?
Mitch Rapp? Who's gonna play him?
Who else? John Cena.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Pre-Star Productions presents Pandemonium at the Presidential Palace. Starring John Cena as Iron Man Mitch Rapp. The only man with the skills, the know-how, the fortitude. I can't believe you got John Cena and Vince Flynn on board.
We're still looking to get a hold of John there.
Oh gosh, what about Vince Flynn? You paid Vince Flynn, right? The author of Transfer of Power, creator of Mitch Rapp?
Yeah, I paid him. I mean, I bought the book. Can anyone hear us? Hey, we're trapped down here. Aren't you guys gonna send Mike? Or Mitch or somebody? We're a little stuck.
Yes.
I mean, my men were supposed to bring guns and explosives and a way out of here.
Oh, sorry about that. You know that next time we'll be all over it, eh?
What Mr. Azizi is trying to say is that although he planned a way to sneak into the bunker, he didn't ever plan any way of getting out of here. Now Mr. Azizi and I have talked it out. We have put aside our differences, and we both decided we'd both very much like to get out of this bunker. Yes, very much so. I guess we have no choice.
Send them in.
You can't be serious, sir.
We have to. They're the only option we have left.
It's Vera and Raoul. They're bad movies. It's Vera and Raoul. Still bad movies. Here to crack the safe and save the day. They'll make sure the president is saved. It's Vera and Raoul.
Don't forget Ed.
Ed, how long until you're in that bunker, Ed?
Well, shucks, that depends, Raoul. There's a key combination lock keeping us out of this here bunker. And if I play it safe, I can be in there in 6 hours. But if I push the drills...
If you push the drills, then how long?
2, maybe 3 hours. But if I burn out one of the drills, then we'll be in a whole heap of trouble.
What about the locks?
The combination lock is more than 6 digits long, and the keyed portion of the locks looks to be using a specialized key corresponding with some subset of the Order of Rodentia and the family Scleridae.
I don't know what any of that jargon means, Ed.
It means we need a key, Raoul.
A key?
Yeah, but not just any key. We need a squirrel key. And a very specific squirrel key.
So here I've been thinking a lot about this idea called multiple independent discovery. Now, multiple independent discovery is defined as the discovery of the same invention by 2 individuals at nearly or exactly the same time, and it's a surprising phenomenon that has happened a remarkable amount of times throughout history. It's actually so common that all the way back in 1922, a couple of sociologists, one Doris C.S. Thompson and one William F. Ogburn, decided to write a paper on the trend. You see, they had noticed a trend in the scientific community by which inventions would be discovered by multiple parties at nearly identical times, at different places in the world, separated by distance and influence upon one another. Their paper was entitled Are Inventions Inevitable? A Note on Social Evolution, and it discussed the phenomenon which the two coined multiple independent discovery. The paper noted 148 separate instances in which the same invention was discovered at nearly or roughly the same time by two or more parties in different places without influence upon one another. Some famous examples include Sir Alfred Russel Wallace and Charles Darwin developing the theory of evolution nearly simultaneously. Charles Darwin kept his theory secret for 2 decades before Wallace published his scientific papers in 1858, which prompted Darwin to gather up his papers and compile and publish The Origins of Species 1 year later in 1859. Likewise, calculus was developed by Isaac Newton and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz at nearly the same time, even though the two were separated by a large body of water and over 700 miles of distance. Newton developed his theorems in England in the late 1660s and 1670s, though he would not publish until much later, and Leibniz developed his in Nuremberg, Germany, during the 1670s. The telephone notably was invented by Elijah Gray and Alexander Graham Bell at the same time, both of whom actually filed for patents on the same day within hours of one another. But because Graham's patent was filed earlier in the day than Gray's, he was awarded the patent for the invention. Back in the 1770s, the discovery of oxygen was a hotly contested subject, with Carl Wilhelm Scheele discovering the element in 1771, but not publishing his paper until 1777. Joseph Priestley making his discovery in 1774 and being generally credited at the time, and Anton Lavoisier discovering the element in 1778 and also naming it oxygen. And those are really just a couple of examples from a list it's really frankly altogether exhausting. There's frankly too many to talk about because the amount of multiple independent discoveries in science is enormous. But this is not a science podcast. I know, surprise, surprise, this is actually a bad movies podcast. But that being said, the entertainment industry is by no means isolated from this phenomenon. Multiple independent discovery happens within the film industry all the time. Now, there is certainly a tendency in viewers to perceive this as signs of foul play or perhaps even espionage, but the truth is that media is designed to reflect our shared public consciousness, and that inevitably leads to duplicates, clones, repeats, and what many have coined in the movie industry as twin films. Now, twin films are defined as films with the same or very similar plots, which are produced or released at nearly the same time by 2 different film studios. In our case, political tensions, plus the Mayan apocalypse, plus, a possible interest in adapting a Vince Flynn novel led to 2 very similar, very schlocky political action thrillers. But Olympus Has Fallen and White House Downs are by no means the only twin movies. If you want to go pick up a shovel, this vein runs deep. There are a lot of weirdly similar movies coming out right next to one another. So, just to note a few of the fun ones. For your young hotshot pilot wannabes in flight school, you of course have movies like Top Gun, but you also have movies like Iron Eagle. Now, if we needed to move away from flight school and you might want a cop and dog buddy movie to calm it down after all that action, then you could check out Turner and Hooch, but you'd also be obliged to watch a movie called K-9. Now, are you afraid of deep water diving? Well, you're in luck, because so was 1989, because that year gave us movies like The Abyss, Deep Star 6, The Evil Below, Lords of the Deep, Leviathan, and The Rift. That is a sextuplet of sci-fi horror thriller movies about deep-sea exploration. It's weirdly specific and just so many. But we have to move on. We have to move on to the 80s, and moving on to the 80s, we move on to an early 90s obsession with Robin Hood. We have Robin Hood, Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, and Robin Hood Men in Tights. Moving on to the mid-90s, in 94 and 95, unbelievably you have both The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, coming out within a year of one another. Now those are both movies about drag queens going on road trips across their respective continents. The noticeable difference between the two being that Priscilla takes place in Australia and Tu Wong Fu takes place in North America. But otherwise, those are two movies about drag queens going on road trips of self-discovery while navigating the early 90s cultural mix of homophobia and acceptance. But as we move on from our beloved drag queens, we get a sudden surge in fighting-themed movies. We get Street Fighter, Double Dragon, Mortal Kombat, all coming out within a year of one another. Then you have movies like Gordy and Babe coming out in 94 and 95. The Craft came out in 1996, but so did Little Witches. Little Witches being a very similar low-budget Canadian film about young teenage outcast girls who use witchcraft to reassert themselves. I had honestly never heard of Little Witches until now, but reading about it it sounds so awesome. Frankly, I loved The Craft, and a low-budget Canadian knockoff is kind of what I need in my life.
We made a little fun earlier, but we just wanted to let you know that we love you, Canada. Our studio is down here in Washington, so we're really just kissing cousins. Or at least we'd like to be. Call us, Canada. We'd love to take you out on a date, maybe a little poutine and chill.
Speaking of Washington, we have a Washington favorite, Dante's Peak, which is of course a movie that is vaguely about the 1980s eruption of Mount St. Helens here in Washington. The movie was filmed in Wallace, Idaho, and it premiered in 1997, which was the same year as Volcano. Volcano is of course a volcano movie that sees Los Angeles devastated as a tectonic shift causes the formation of a volcano at the La Brea tar pits. Moving on to 1998, we went digital, with movies like Ants and A Bug's Life, which are both computer animated films about ants, and they follow nearly identical plot structures, featuring the ants refusing to follow societal norms within the colony, leaving the colony, falling in love, and returning as the conquering hero. Still in 1998, Deep Impact and Armageddon are both disaster movies about large asteroids that are about to destroy the Earth. Both premiered in the same year, but as Bruce Willis can only be in one place at one time, he could only save the world in one of these two movies. Thus, sadly, the Earth is devastated in Deep Impact. We move from environmental disasters to moral and spiritual ones as we approach the end of the century, 1999 seeing both End of Days and Stigmata. But as we pass the millennia, with Stigmata at bay, no Y2K, and all of the computers still A-OK, we moved on. We laughed, we loved, and we entered the short-lived parody movie years. A host of bad movies spoofing mediocre movies. We started off the short-lived obsession with a set of triple movies which all premiered in the same year, the year 2000, those of course being Scary Movie, Shriek If You Know What I Did Last Friday the 13th, and of course, The Bogus Witch Party with Pauly Shore. War of the Worlds came out in 2005 as well, but so did H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds, which is surprisingly a different movie, a worse movie, frankly a cheaper adaptation of the same source material, coming out in the same year as well. But overwhelmed with Apocalyptica? 2006 sees us asking the proverbial question, do you believe in magic? As both The Prestige and The Illusionist premiered in the same year. Both movies, of course, about 19th century magicians. We have some animated combos coming out back to back like Happy Feet and Surf's Up. Or maybe you wanted to catch a medium budget featuring a well-known comedian playing a down-on-his-luck mall cop who really just needs to buckle up his belt strap and save the day. Well, friends, then you just need to borrow our Wayback Machine and hop back to 2009 where you could, at your leisure, choose between either Observe and Report or, of course, Paul Blart Mall Cop. Now 2010 went animated again with a set of twin comedic villains turned anti-heroes. Now you can have your movie and watch it too with Despicable Me and Megamind. If you were feeling flirty, then 2011 was the year for you, as steamy no-strings friendships lead to loving romances with no strings attached and friends with benefits. In 2012, we see Snow White returning to the stage to tell her tale in not one but two big-budget movies, as Snow White and the Huntsman and Mirror Mirror premiere that year. And if you're an Apple fan, you could choose your biopic slice with either Jobs or Steve Jobs, which were both movies about legendary Apple founder Steve Wozniak and his famously friendly cohort, Little Steve. Now, of course, in 2013, we may have moved on to a new universal cycle, but no matter what universal cycle we are on, there's always a die-hard styled assault on the White House that features a chiseled action star cast as a bodyguard set to storm the castle, save the president, and save America. And in 2013, you should feel supreme because you have not one but two films that match this theme. The choice is yours. You have the two, The Crude, Olympus Has Fallen, and White House Down. And don't worry because the trend doesn't seem like it's ever going to stop. Now, moving up to more present days, I think everybody would be a little bit upset if I didn't mention that in 2022 we were seeing Disney's Pinocchio, Pinocchio by Guillermo del Toro, and Pinocchio: A True Story, featuring Pauly Shore. You know, I talked a little bit about multiple independent discovery in the scientific community, but there's really just no way for me to, pull up that tab and just show you the absurd amount of parallel there, and then show you the full list of twin movies, because I assure you, that was just a light dusting. But, stick around. These might be twin movies, but more than most, their parallel rivers run deep, and we're gonna do a full deep dive after the film. Okay, so y'all there? I was wondering, did y'all catch that jazz from earlier? From part 1, the stuff about leap years, There's a leap year every 4 years, no leap year every 100 years, then leap year again every 400 years. Right, I know. So, the reason I'm bringing it back up is because it just occurred to me, a little bit ago, while I was writing this, just how worthless that information really is. That could honestly be one of the most useless pieces of information that I've ever tried to drill into your head meat. I mean, just follow. The year 2000 was a once in 400 year pro-anti-leap year. Okay, that means that leap year happened like normal. And there won't be another skipped leap year until the year 2100. The last one happened in the year 1900, which means none of you will ever experience the stark horrors of an anti-leap year 28-day February, the massive indignancy of a February only 28 days long, in a year that is evenly divisible by 4, but also by 100, but also, again, not evenly divisible by 400, The cruel thought that the month would be 29 days long, rent would be due on Thursday. All would be right with the world, but then some smarty pants in a wig comes by to spoil your whole month just to tell you that no, in fact, rent is due on Wednesday and in full this time, Samuel Jackson. This devastation, it will never befall any of you, because for as super neat as all that leap year information is, it's never going to affect any of you at all. So for now, I suppose, with much time wasted on meaningless anti-leap years that we will never see, I guess it's time for us to get down to our pre-show breakdown. White House Down is a 2013 die-hard-style action thriller produced by Sony Pictures, starring Channing Tatum, Jamie Foxx, and Joey King. The movie cost $150 million to produce and grossed $205 at box office, making it a very successful film. White House Down was directed by Roland Emmerich, the script was written by James Vanderbilt, and was purchased in the same month as the spec script for Olympus Has Fallen. Filming took place in Montreal, Canada, and began in July of 2012. The movie premiered on June 2018 of 2013 to mixed reviews. White House Down has a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. It has a 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb. It has a 52% on Metacritic, and 82% of Google users like this movie. Let's get down to some reviews from the internet, shall we? For our 5-star review today, I have a review by TK Carlman26 entitled, "The Critics Were Wrong."
This is a fantastic film! All the nitpicking aside, I just rewatched this film and I was thrilled again, even though I sort of remember the outcome. The suspense is absolutely biting right up to the end. I don't really care that Olympus Has Fallen came out at roughly the same time. Leave that to someone who cares. This film stands on its own. Great film, don't pass it up. Those who made this film really cared to make the best action film they could, and it shows. Pure cliché.
And with our 5-star review out of the way, let's get on to our 1-star review, shall we? And for our 1-star review, we have a review by Derek Mills, entitled Star-Studded B-Movie.
This was so unrealistic. It was stupid. Complete trash. Now, I don't mean Hollywood movie magic unrealistic, I mean that it was beyond the realms of a B-movie realistic. One RPG hits an Abrams tank and the tank explodes and blows to pieces? What? I cannot believe that this movie ever made it out to viewers like this. I'm so shocked that a cast like this would be a part of a movie like this. I'm trying not to give away everything with spoilers, but when their stealth plan is to fly 3 Blackhawks through the crowded streets 30 feet above the ground to avoid detection, but the streets are packed with reporters who are live and looking right at those Blackhawks trying to avoid detection. And the bad guys are watching the news. I'm just shocked. These brilliant military minds didn't think about all the people they were flying 30 feet above and the bad guys wouldn't be watching the news? Seriously? The movie's just so bad that it's straight out stupid.
But none of that really matters. What really matters is this bad movie for you? Well, with White House Down, you're going to need to take what you've learned about die-hard-style patriotic action thrillers featuring terrorists overthrowing the White House and taking the president hostage only for the president's bodyguard to rush in, kill the terrorists and save the day, and flip it around. That's right, you'll need to take what you've learned from Olympus Has Fallen and do a full 360 backflip with it, landing mere inches from where its predecessor left off. White House Down follows a remarkable quantity of story beats from its younger twin, but it puts a refreshing comedic twist on a somewhat tired genre, giving it a lighthearted feel necessary for any such summer follow-up. White House Down is your comedic younger brother to the stern older sibling that is Olympus Has Fallen. White House Down stars
John Cale, the only bodyguard who can...
Channing all over your Tatum.
Joey King is Emily Cale, an 11-year-old member of the JV Color Guard. She's the only one who can save her father, the president, and the G for Lovin' White House. And who knows, maybe by the end of all of this, if she's lucky, she might actually even make the JV Cheer Squad.
Wait, what? I don't want to be on the cheer squad. I like Color Guard. That's why I tried out for it. Jeez, John, learn something about me for once, why don't you?
Well, I'm not really John, and you're not really Emily, so none of this really matters.
Jeez, John. I know. Okay? I know it's all just a show. I know none of this is actually real. It's all just in your head. I'm not real. None of this is real. I'm just a figment of your imagination, John. Your name's not even John, John.
It's last keeper of the plane of blasphemers, holder of the dark torch that sets ablaze hell's fires, and fanner of the flames that freezes hell's to its bones, Beelzebub.
Dark keeper of eternity.
What
Wait.
are you doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you saying something? You're gonna have to start over because I missed, all of it. I just start thinking about, Minions whenever I get super bored. You know?
Well, I was saying...
That your weak and pathetic soul is about to become nothing more than a fragile and withered snot.
That I can...
Rock into the rhythm, Barbara. I'm sorry, can you stop? I keep getting caught up on Minions every time you talk, and I've got a lot of things to do today.
I will not be ignored.
Oh, that really smarts. Ah, there we go. Emily? Evil Emily? You there? It really worked. What do you know? Frankenhooker for the win again, I guess.
Jamie Foxx as James Sawyer, a modern-day president with a mean stride. This James Sawyer got mean green pride.
Maggie Gyllenhaal stars as Secret Service Presidential Detail Deputy Special Agent in Charge Carol Finity Wilkes, the only woman man enough to stand up to Eli Raffleson in his preposterous pizza party plans. She's the Canadian to his bacon, the saffron to his sausage, the pickled onions to his pepperoni.
God damn it, that's not how you make a pizza.
Jason Clarke plays Emil Stenz, a historic movie buff that takes it way too seriously when a White House staffer interrupts his favorite film.
Jimmy Simpson plays Skip Tyler, an ex-NSA cybersecurity analyst turned hacker and proud member of the Lollipop Guild.
Kyle Gatehouse plays our rowdy redhead, Conrad Cern.
Kevin Rankin plays Commander Carl Killick. Commander Carl Killick has hands that grip, hands that hold open and hold close, hands that hold on with a kung fu grip. Hands that Commander Carl Killick uses in self-defense. Commander Carl Killick, now with Kung Fu grip.
Jackie Geary plays Jenna Bidwell, Kale's woman on the inside who never actually got any.
Richard Jenkins plays our pizza baron and reptile to be Eli Raffleson. He's determined to save not only the Ohio Valley, but Detroit, St. Louis, and New York styles of pizza as well.
James Woods plays Martin Walker, a used car dealer turned Secret Service member. Walker Woods is determined to get his son vengeance from the grave and kill the people he once saved.
Barbara Williams plays Walker's wife, Muriel Walker, the world's fastest treasonous turncoat.
The only thing Muriel's loyal to is her man.
And finally, Nicholas Wright plays Big Double D Dilla Dong Donnie Dawson, the unassuming White House tour guide with a double dose of patriotic pride and a double-barrel 12-gauge to match. If you see him coming, you better all together run for cover.
Donnie D.
What's your favorite bad movie?
Mom, have you seen my peanut butter? High five!
Bend your head.
Jeez, that's not cranberry sauce.
Watch me.
Some movies are bad. Some are just plain rotten.
I'm not bad. I'm just filmed that way.
Movies among us.
Alright, we are back, and after carefully dissecting Olympus Has Fallen, we are on to the White House Down portion of today's brawl. So how does this one begin?
Hopefully not with any melodrama involving unnecessarily killing off the First Lady, am I right?
I'm here.
Yellow's my favorite soda.
So White House Down, we actually start off with our favorite leading lady, Joey King, of course, and she's playing our favorite news nerd, preteen Emily, who wakes up to a cell phone notification at 6:37 a.m. in the morning. She is the daughter of our leading man, John Cale, and her cell phone notification is apparently there to remind her to watch the news. And watching this, you're just kind of like, what child actually gets up at 6:30 in the morning to watch the national news? But Emily's, she's just all about it, she's got to get her Rachel Maddow on. Morning, noon, night, she's just right there each and every broadcast, every time there's breaking news, because apparently she is that kid. She's that one that's always racing up to you first thing in the morning to tell you all about whatever terrible things happened to the news the night before. And now Emily, particularly jazzed to be catching the news this morning. Like any good news addict, she's got a Jones to fix, and this morning she gets the creme de la creme. Because that's right, today there's going to be a controversial vote. Which, always exciting, but today's vote, this one, controversial Senate vote. I know, edge of your seats. This vote is on the new controversial, I know I've said it 3 times, but it's important to how exciting it is, Middle Eastern peace plan, with the Senate voting on the measure today. Oh my gosh, and the measure, it's going to go to Congress tomorrow. Which, doesn't make any sense, because that's not how the government is actually structured, but none of that is actually important, so let's just move on with it, I suppose. Emily just way overexcited with the vote that should actually be going to the House of Representatives and then the Senate, both of which are part of Congress, gets overly excited and drops her phone in the process. After which we get treated to a nice little view of the DC skyline as we watch 3 helicopters fly by the Washington Monument. We meet Carol inside one of the helicopters, and Carol is already spitting code names and jargons faster than you can say Red Eagle. She also just happens to be holding the pocket watch which was once gifted from Mary Todd Lincoln to her husband Abraham. And it does kind of make you wonder how it came into her possession, Because it's not that I think that Maggie Gyllenhaal is the best pick for Indiana Jones, but she obviously must have broken into a museum somewhere to steal that watch. Carol, though, is interrupted by the president telling her that he wants to do the thing.
And pray tell, what is the thing?
Well, whatever it isn't a good idea, and Carol tells the president this much. But, President Sawyer is a much different man than President Asher was. He's the pretty please type of president, and he uses this judicial power of please to ask Carol one more time to please do the thing. And Carol, she bites. She radios for the helicopters to do the thing, and they drop to 30 feet over the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. The one that Jenny trudges herself through in Forrest Gump? That one. Small deviation, but President Sawyer's giddy as a schoolgirl, so I guess it was worth it overall. And as they fly over the Lincoln Memorial, Sawyer drops some presidential trivia about Abraham Lincoln, making sure to note that he was the first president in favor of women having the vote.
And also that he wrote a paper on suffrage while still in the Illinois legislature.
Carol reminds him that. She knows all of that stuff, because he tells her this every time they do this flyby. She doesn't seem too fazed, though. With her simple shrug and cheeky grin and soft roll of the eyes, everything just kind of washes off of her. Everything seems so bright and cheery here, and altogether much different tonally from pretty much all of Olympus Has Fallen. All of the appropriate authorities are giving all of the appropriate all-clears to the helicopter pilots until all of the sudden, one of the rooftop snipers spots something suspicious on one of the balconies. He switches to the thermal goggles. And what's that? Oh, thank God. It's just a couple of regular civilians engaged in regular good old-fashioned American coitus. It kind of makes you wonder, how often this actually happens. Presumably the president takes this route pretty often, Carol casually refers to it as the thing. Does it always involve secret rooftop snipers watching people mid-coitus? I mean, I know they're professionals and everything, but this guy did take a substantial pause for a second, as though he thought there might be a real threat. And, thank God that this time he correctly identified it as a married couple having nuptials, but it's still pretty disconcerting to me.
I mean, I would not want to live within sniper distance of the White House knowing this. Like, no, thank you.
I know, right? I guess we will just say, woohoo! It's a close one. Crisis averted. We'll move on, right? Okay, so the helicopters land in front of the White House, dropping off President Sawyer along with Carol. Sawyer tells Carol to wake him up at the world end, and he tells this like a joke, but he doesn't know that the movie is directed by Roland Emmerich, so he's essentially the king of end of the world movies, so Jamie Foxx might want to watch out. It's about this point in the movie that we're introduced to our leading man and hero in a tank top, John Cale, played by Channing Tatum. He is currently pacing around outside of his boss's house and complaining that he's going to be late. There's a small television in the car behind him, and it's broadcasting the news. On the news, President Sawyer is talking about how his mama cooked for his best friend Ricky, and how mama's cooking saved Ricky from a life of crime, and thus President Sawyer's philosophy is revealed to us. He tells us,
if you nurture someone, you take away their propensity for violence.
Meanwhile, Cale, he just starts fighting with the squirrel. There's what I believe to be a gray squirrel that just runs up and onto this quote-unquote bird feeder. That honestly, it just looks like a little house. Like this little bird house. It seems way more made for squirrels than birds, anyway.
There's a key in that little squirrel house. Grab it.
I don't know. Didn't Thomas say we needed some sort of flying squirrel key?
You're always so pessimistic, Alan. Come on, let's go check. Then we can be done with this stupid quest you've been stuck on for the last 2 years.
Hi again, Thomas. It's me, Alan.
And Vera.
Pleasure to meet you. I'm Thomas McLean, the sheriff's assistant. This is the first really big case I've ever seen.
We need to get into the file cabinet in the meeting room.
Yes, of course. The sheriff told me to let you through to the meeting room.
See, we didn't even need this stupid key.
But I've lost the key to the cabinet where the files are.
I'm pretty sure we got the right key this time. I mean, how many squirrel keys can there really be?
You found the key. Is this the one you were looking for? No. This is a gray squirrel. Sorry, that's not the key. Nothing particularly special about the gray squirrel, I'm afraid. You can find them in the U.S., Canada, and in England, too. But we're looking for a southern flying squirrel right now.
Are you saying I'm dumb just because I'm some nerdy squirrel freak? Excuse me? Excuse me? Say again. I dare you. I double dare you, mother. Say one more time.
You don't know your squirrels, do you?
You did? Thanks, Vera. How'd you find it?
I didn't find it, honey. Thomas did. He can be super helpful. He just needed a little encouragement.
Back to the movie. So this squirrel just straight up disrespects John Cale by climbing up onto this bird feeder, where it just starts eating.
The squirrel's name is Clyde, and he's nomming on bird feed.
Well, he's not just nomming on bird feed, he's also threatening John Cale's job. And like any red-blooded American in threat of losing his job, Cale whips out his pistol and just starts waving in front of Clyde, threatening violence if he doesn't get his way, ready to shoot that squirrel right in the face.
Maybe somebody should nurture Cale to take away his propensity for violence.
Ooh, I volunteer.
The other agent working with Cale, Agent Kellerman, played by Matt Craven, asks John if he needs some backup, and clearly he does, because this squirrel situation has quickly gotten well out of hand. Cale and Kellerman are assigned to protect Speaker of the House Eli Raffleson, who is played by Richard Jenkins, and it seems like Mr. Raffleson has a cold as he asks for some Robitussin.
Alan will tell you that Robitussin is the solution to all of your problems.
Along with being super helpful by offering some Robitussin, Cale also debriefs Raffleson in regards to the squirrel situation and how they're off to the Capitol building. Meanwhile, President Sawyer, speaking on the morning news, tries to talk to America about his plans to pull troops from the Middle East and reinforce the region's infrastructure, healthcare, and education. I'm sure this decision will blow over smoothly and absolutely nothing ill will come of this. Over in the Walker residence, Secret Service Presidential Detail Special Agent in Charge Martin Walker, played by James Woods, is aggressively getting dressed for work. He has a gun in his hand and a pin of the American flag fastened to his suit. He hesitates for a moment, and after a brief moment's hesitation, he takes off the pin and places it next to a portrait of who I can only assume is his son. Walker's wife, Muriel, casually slips his coat on for him on his way out the door. This small gesture seems to brighten his mood just a little bit. He comments on Muriel's change of hair, but Muriel mentions that it's been that way for a week now, and right off the bat we have a repeat of the unnoticed haircut routine for the beginning of Olympus Has Fallen. Mind you, that was with the First Lady and the President, and this is with the Secret Service Detail Director Walker and his wife, but it happens at almost the same point in the movie. Martin tells her that he's going to be late tonight and that he loves her very much. No kisses, though. Walker is a busy businessman. At least that's what he's trying to put forth. And there's too much business for kissing right now. At the Capitol building, Speaker of the House Eli Raffleson asks our main man John Cale about his opinion on the president's plans. Cale doesn't want to overstep his boundaries, but he says that he thinks it's good to have less enemies. But Raffleson, perhaps just playing devil's advocate, asks Cale if he thinks that the president is putting the United States at risk. Cale declines to answer. He pauses for a moment.
Sir, why don't you run for president?
Raffleson, though, just casually responds that he's happy with the job he has. He never wanted to be president. Meanwhile, Martin Walker is being debriefed on the president's schedule for the day. Out of the corner of his eye, John Cale spots a girl. And who could that be? Oh my gosh, it's Jenna. John rushes over to confront her. He pulls her aside, asking her if she got him an in.
An in for what?
An in, as in an in for an interview arranged for the president's security detail. And it seems as though young John Cale aspires to be just like Mike Manning one day. Now, Jenna does apparently have some connections, though, and supposedly she can make this interview happen, but she has some small demands. She'll get him the interview in exchange for two things. 1, she wants a candlelit dinner, and 2, she wants a solid guarantee that Johnny will at least attempt to get to second base with her. Right? Like, I'm sure she's gonna put up a real fight, though. Cale agrees, and Jenna tells him that he has an interview set up with Carol Rafferty later today for him. But Cale's not quite done with Jenna yet, as he needs just one small other favor from her. And this time, favor just means getting tickets for his daughter to tour the White House.
You know, Jenna ought to call his bluff and ask for a little more. But Jenna does bite, and she tells Cale that she'll make a call.
And if you watch closely during this scene, you'll see a soon-to-be terrorist roll right by our wannabe hero. John Cale misses him entirely, but he's an obvious threat, as he's a full-blooded redhead and consequently a soulless heathen. And if you were hoping to stick around so you could watch Jackie Geary flirt some more with Channing Tatum, then I'm sorry I'm going to have to disappoint you, because we're actually going to be following this redhead out of this scene. I mean, not with the camera. What we have here is more of a non-intuitive, direct cut over to the latter-day events of a barely visible background character. So, we transition over to suspicious redhead number 1. He's wearing a Letterman jacket and currently stalking the Capitol building. He looks ominous and out of place, but nobody's calling him on it. He pulls back his sleeve, revealing a cryptic set of numbers, which, not so cryptically, just happen to be a locker combination. A locker combination which, like, frankly, given the gravity and importance of the task, I feel like Red Fox over here. I feel like him, or really anybody in this situation, should just be able to remember. Frankly, it's a short combination, and it's seemingly super important, and I don't suppose it matters too much because this whole White House takedown scene is nonsense as well, albeit thankfully far shorter and with much less bravado than we got from Olympus Has Fallen. That being said, though, you'll still have to pay close attention if you want to understand the ins and outs of Red Fox's plan. So, just so you know, here's how our takedown happens in White House Down. Red Fox reveals himself to be a baddie when he cuffs his sleeve, which reveals the secret code. A secret code that no good bad guy would ever need. Red Fox rolls into a hallway, figuratively that is. He's fully capable. I mean, he's like not in a wheelchair or anything. I didn't mean to imply that he was disabled or old. He's basically a middle-aged redhead without a soul. And, just out for non-specific revenge. Freedom, justice, yada yada yada, that whole bit by now. He checks on the numbers on his wrist. Still numbers. He looks left. He looks right. He ducks into a maintenance closet where most people aren't looking, and it's kind of safe-ish. Inside of the maintenance closet, Red Fox approaches one of the lockers. He begins to open it. using that super complicated code from before. It's 5 digits. It's 5 digits long. Did I mention that? Did I mention that? I think I forgot to mention it. It's only 5 digits long, and I'd tell you exactly what it is, but I don't want to spoil the movie. So either way, inside the open locker, he finds a uniform. And inside of the maintenance closet, also a maintenance cart. And I'm not sure why he couldn't have just entered the maintenance closet in a janitor's jumpsuit with the utility cart. And I'm not sure why he needed to slip into one of the buildings. Because frankly, it doesn't really matter. Because only moments later, he's walking across the Capitol building to some fictitious loading docks, which you're going to have to stretch your imagination, listeners, because apparently, in this universe, the Capitol building has loading docks designed for fully sized 16-wheelers, which, I mean, that's neat and fun and really convenient for Taco Tuesday, but it's a terrible mistake today. As Red Fox and his fellow maligned league of mercenaries, meanies, baddies, no-goodniks, they have all now access to these easily accessible loading docks and scenes that weren't shown in the movie, or really, for that matter, like filmed in any way, but scenes which existed in the hearts and minds of the directors and the producers and the good men and women who worked on this film. So these scenes, which established how the terrorist managed to drive a fully sized box truck up to the Capitol building with no inspections and no questions asked, were left out of the movie. A box truck which, oddly enough, only contains one box, with a couple empty bottles of acid, and so we go into the back of the box truck, one box, opens up the box, Red Fox, right? Red Fox opens the box, and in the box, couple empty bottles of acid, and underneath the acid, we have some high explosives? Which, who hides high explosives under empty jugs of acid? That is just, it's so dumb. Like, it's the worst place you could hide them. Why would you do that, Red Fox? Does not matter. Red Fox discards the empty acid jugs, casually tossing them to the side, to reveal the bomb underneath. Off-screen, also not shown, but at least a little more believably this time, he hides the explosives somewhere on the utility cart, and then wheels it back the 80 or so yards from where he came, right? I mean, I guess not shown, but just let's logically assume, shall we, based on a few positional things like the loading dock and moving through the rotunda, I think it's pretty safe to say he used an elevator during his brief stint in the Capitol building, but still, it still seems as though his whole secret plan was to travel from the entrance of the Capitol building to the rotunda, where he could grab himself a janitor's outfit from a pre-established maintenance closet, grabbing a utility cart while he was there, and then he'd hit the nearest elevator to the floor level where these supposed loading docks are, where he would just quickly open a box truck just conveniently left for him before grabbing some unlikely explosives, and finally returning up to the rotunda, where we'll just have to leave Red Fox off for now, armed and dangerous and ready to be super disrespectful to his elders. Back with Emily and John, the news is still going on about President Sawyer's evacuation of the troops in Afghanistan. The news anchor warns that this could anger a lot of businessmen that do business with the military. In transitioning over to Kale's ex-wife, we see a woman having a second choice syndrome.
No argument that Kale is childish, but he's also inexcusably hot, and played by Channing Tatum no less. Regardless of his prior mistakes, he can still cut onions on those abs, and that brings a tear to my eye.
Kale's daughter, Emily, however, played by Joey King, is obviously immune to her father's sultry, sulfurous nature. She sits there, waiting for her dad to show, entirely unimpressed with John C. Coleslaw, who is late as usual, a point which his ex-wife belabors him on the moment he makes it through the door. She thought you weren't coming.
There's some bad blood right now between Kale and Emily, and when Kale tries to ask Emily what's bothering her, his ex-wife tells him that he missed her talent show.
My name's Rachel.
Rachel tells him that he missed her talent show, and that's why she's upset. No, that's next Thursday.
But next Thursday was last Thursday, and last Thursday was yesterday, and all the confusion he just forgot.
I did.
Shame on you, Kale. Shame. So, John asks Melanie what Emily was doing for the talent show, and Melanie reminds him that she was a flag twirler. A flag twirler, John. So Emily was a flag twirler, to which Kale surprisingly has the nerve to ask if that's actually a talent. This raises some tension between old husband and wife, and Kale contests that a regular reminder might have resolved most of the major maladies. Melanie scoffs at his insolence, his nonsense, and his general lack of penitence. A little support on the side of your daughter and your ex-wife would make life a lot easier, I assure you, John. Cale, however, unable to hear my voiceover suggestions, argues to the point of contention, letting things boil over, where he then leaves, taking Emily with him. We switch over to John and Emily, stuck in traffic. In the car, Emily is refusing to talk to her father. And frankly, she's kind of being a little bratty. She's tucked away, listening to music on her iPhone, and John tries to engage with her. He asks her if she's going to be on that non-specific soap bar cell phone all day. In a sassy little response, she just texts him. Upon his phone, yes, appears. John does his best to make an honest effort here. He's really just trying to get his foot in the door so he can surprise her with an apology present. John keeps at it, though, getting her to take off the earbuds just long enough to allow him to bust out that special surprise. Those super secret surprise White House passes. The ones that he snagged from Jenna this morning. He pulls out an envelope from his chest pocket, handing it over to Emily. It's unmarked. John's temporary disregard for the road here it's super unsafe. He is driving and paying absolutely zero attention to the road while he drives. But luckily there's no black ice abound. It's summertime, and with summertime comes casual driving. So some nonchalant, distracted driving here should be just fine.
No, it's not! This is why I hate driving with you out! Just because it's summertime doesn't mean you can kick off your shoes, but the car and cruise control and hand-pressed Valencia oranges!
Hand-squeezed orange juice is kinda worth it, though.
What is wrong with you? You're gonna get us killed! You're gonna get us all killed! And John, you're just as bad! Why didn't you wait until you were parked to give your daughter the White House passes? Or why not at your ex-wife's apartment? And now you're texting and driving? Stop talking about ponies and press passes and watch the road, you asshole! You're gonna get us all killed!
We do get some super funny dialogue here from Joey King. Her performance as Emily Cale is honestly, it's my favorite in the movie because she's sassy, she's funny, and she shows character depth and progression. But she also does just like a wonderful job of playing off of Channing Tatum. The two of them carry a lot of the chemistry behind this movie, frankly, and they really achieved something that Mike and Connor from Olympus Has Fallen just couldn't. As John tries to hand over the envelope to Emily, she immediately becomes confrontational.
Do you really think a bribe's gonna work?
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
We're both adults here, John.
Can you please just open it?
What is it?
It's a pony, baby. I don't know, please, just for me. I mean, once Emily finally opens it up, she's of course ecstatic. He also tells her about that job interview he has for a Secret Service position.
And Emily has to admit, that's pretty cool.
She still won't call him Dad, though. Just John.
Wait. John Cale? John McClane? Is Channing Tatum actually Bruce Willis? Yeah, yes, sir? Ed, I need a background check on this John Cale character. Okay, just give me a minute there, sir. Sir, it appears, according to our best scientific computer analysis, Channing Tatum just appears to be another strong male action lead, designated to fill similar style roles as Bruce Willis, but all of our testing indicates that, in fact, they are two separate individuals. Although they may fill similar style action roles, they are not, as so many in Hollywood have rumored, the same person, sir. Two different people. It's frankly unbelievable, sir, but it's true. You're saying he's not going to be able to break into the bunker and save the other president from the intro joke? Well, sir, that would seem unlikely at best. But listen, I mean, if you will all just wait and give it just a little bit of time, I don't know, maybe just a few hours, I'll have this safe cracked open, and then we'll have the president free willing nilly. Y'all could, I don't know, maybe y'all could go work on a nice potluck dinner or something, while I'm working here. Well, I guess while Ed tries to crack the safe from the intro joke, and while I prepare us for a potluck dinner, President Sawyer is preparing for the upcoming meeting while he watches his daily briefs. We see some Tucker Carlson type on the news here. He's an announcer named Roger Skinner, and he's on blast, berating President Sawyer about the Commander-in-Chief's complete lack of leadership.
Now, President Sawyer, as he likes to call himself, well, I've checked his military records and apparently he's never even served in the armed forces. And what's even more offensive is that he's never even claimed to have served in the armed forces. And now he wants to be bossing around our armed forces, telling them when and where to be occupying? Who does this guy think he is? Bossing the military around like some sort of jabroni Andrew Too-Long puppet master
President Sawyer tries to maintain his composure in light of the jabroni comment, but it's obvious that it shakes him. Carol Finnerty, Deputy Special Agent in charge of the United States Secret Service Presidential Protection Detail and John Cale's most important frenemy, bursts into the room saying, "She has the First Lady for you," which is one way of saying that she has the wife on the phone for you. President Sawyer asks Carol to remind him why they allow the news to broadcast from their lawn, to which Carol, of course, reminds him, freedom of the press. Husband and wife share a phone call, and they both seem to be dealing with tough days on opposite sides of the globe. Mrs. Sawyer is in Paris at this very moment, very alive and very not dead, trying to settle some treaty. Sawyer tells his wife that he thinks Raffleson is the key to his success, and if his plan fails, he'll end up a one-term president. Mrs. Sawyer asks if he still has the watch she gave him, and of course the answer is yes, and we know this. And you know why? Because it was the same watch Carol was fondling in the airplane at the start of the movie. Wait, President Sawyer, is the First Lady aware that you've been letting Carol Finnerty, Presidential Detail Deputy Special Agent in Charge, fondle the watch your wife gave you? Which, again, another weird similarities. Both presidents' wives gave them pocket watches as gifts in both of these movies. Neither of them are new watches either. Also, Presidential Detail Deputy Special Agent in Charge is a mouthful of a job title. Just saying. It's a lot. But anyway, Mrs. Sawyer reminds President Sawyer that Mary Todd Lincoln gave Abe that watch to remind him of the limited amount of time that he had to do good in the presidential chair, which President Sawyer assures her he remembers. They share I love yous because Mr. Sawyer needs to get back to being Mr. President, and because he wants to get his mind off of his wife's taste in gifts. As we switch back to Emily and Cale, Emily is reading Cale some White House trivia, which, yes, not only do we have the buddy kid plot, this time it's the bodyguard's kid instead of the president's, but along with that, along with this movie sharing the kid's side plot, we also share this little exposition dump scene in which the kid drops useless facts to establish their knowledge of the White House and its grounds, so that we can have some good old-fashioned, no-holds-barred kick-ass action. So just like in the beginning of Olympus Has Fallen, where we have Mike, the bodyguard, talking to Kid Connor as they drive, while Kid Connor exposition dumps what a little badass he's supposed to be later on, we likewise have John Cale, the soon-to-be bodyguard, driving and talking to Kid Emily. You just know little M's gonna be a badass later on. You know, because of her intimate knowledge of the grounds, its security, and of course, well, flag twirling. John Cale takes the moment of relative calmness to apologize to Emily for missing her talent show. Emily says that she's not sorry. And before Cale can even question this, she spits out another piece of White House trivia. Cale tries to apologize again, with extra sincerity this time. Emily deflects and downplays her talents to him. After all she did was twirl a flag.
It wasn't like a big deal. It's not like my flag twirling saved America. Jeez, John, act like an adult.
John's a little taken back at that. He tells him that she doesn't need to have such thick skin around him. They turn into the White House driveway. The security guards give Cale the rundown. They check his ID. They check his car for explosives. They check his checks to check if they're blank. They all are. The guards warn him about the dangers of blank checks.
Hey, buddy, all these blank checks, you know what could happen if an 8-year-old got a hold of all of these?
That could be the end of your financial future just like that, pal.
An 8-year-old gets a hold of all these blank checks he got here, he could start writing them up for anything he wanted.
Could be a real calamity, Carl.
A real caper captain.
You gotta be smart there, buddy.
Yeah.
You leave blank checks lying around like that, you're just making yourself a target to preteen mega thieves.
Yeah.
The first thing I want you to do when you get home...
The first thing?
I want you to take all them blank checks and fill them out.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you know, plan it out. Just think to yourself stuff like, I'm probably gonna spend, about $48.17 plus tax on groceries and hair products next week at the Rite Aid down on the corner of 4th and Montgomery.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's easy, right? So you write yourself a check for $51.23 for groceries and hair stuff and date it out for next Friday, and then you write yourself a check for 11 gallons and 28 ounces of gasoline on the Tuesday before the end of the month when your Cadillac Seville is starting to get low on fuel.
Emily, however, ignores my blank check joke entirely. She simply cannot contain her excited patriotism. Because if flag twirling was JV softball, then this was surely at least mid-regional select invitationals. Emily, in awe as they approach the White House, is just bursting from the scenes with White House knowledge. No threats of violence needed here, however. Emily is happy to divulge everything she knows about the building the moment they enter it, and she is dropping this White House knowledge Cale's way whether he likes it or not. I will mention, she is getting all of this from Wikipedia, which, I hate to break it to her, is not an accredited source as far as AP/AMA formatting goes. Cale checks in his weapon with the guards. The guard, checking Cale's gun, has a very stern expression, almost as if he is hiding something. Emily and Cale get scanned by the other guard with a handheld metal detector, and Cale quips to make sure and check her good. The first guard delivers the gun to gun storage where it is checked by the other officers on duty. The gun, fully checked by all the officers around, can now be locked away safely. John and Emily patiently await for the appointed interview for Cale's new potential position in presidential detail. Cale asks Emily about her blog, but gross dad, nobody says blog anymore. Cale doesn't understand because he just found out what a blog was yesterday. Our father-daughter bonding moment is interrupted by Carol Finnerty, mind you, who, as it turns out, is the interviewer for Cale's position. And it appears that Carol and Cale have some history. John calls her by her old name, Carol Wilkes, and she breaks the news to him that she is actually Carol Finnerty now. Carol pretty instantly realizes that Cale is Jenna's favorite for the day. The whole scene is acted pretty well. It's clear that the two of them know each other, and it's implied it's from college. Perhaps as far back as high school? There's a little bit of sexual tension between the two, but it's played in a way where you never really know whether or not they did the deed, or whether they were just like in similar circles that overlap from time to time. It seems like Carol is trying to do some calculations with regards to Jenna and John, and perhaps to break the tension, Cale introduces Carol to his daughter Emily. Emily oversells her father to Carol, a little too obviously, because both Carol and Emily are looking at her in bewilderment afterwards, but it's also in a way that's overall pretty cute and endearing. Before the interview begins, Carol asks if she married Jim Finnerty. John quips that he was an asshole, and Carol quips back that, yeah, he was. Carol isn't too keen to continue this conversation, possibly because Secret Agent Todd is joining in on the interview, and also possibly because Agent Director Carol killed her husband in cold blood. Or warm blood. That detail I don't know, but I do know that she killed him. Killed him for being an asshole. And now Carol doesn't want to talk to Cale about it, for fear of disseminating any corroborating evidence. Carol and Cale are joined by Super Secret Special Agent Todd, like I mentioned before, who attends the interview as per standard Secret Service protocol. Yeah, he's been standing behind them the entire time, and it's super awkward. Cale is told right off the bat that he is forbidden to look at Agent Todd, which I'm sure makes it really hard not to. Like, does Todd have a mole or a growth or something?
Do it! Look at him! Do it!
No! He needs to pass this interview so he can have a secure and happy relationship with his daughter!
The interview begins, and it doesn't seem to get off to a great start. Carol begins to list all of the jobs that Cale has jumped between, including, but not limited to, mechanic, limo driver, construction. And she makes sure to let him know that he should be ashamed of the loss of each and every one, ashamed of his credit score, and of his general parenting. Carol also mentions John's brief and jilted marriage to Emily's mother, Melanie Shoup, with whom Cale had a kid 6 months later. He was married in 2002 and divorced by 2005. 3 tours in Afghanistan, wounded in the Kunar province, and received the Silver Star Award for pulling a corporal out of a burning Humvee. Cale clarifies that it was an IED attack. Apparently, the corporal that he saved in this attack turned out to be the nephew of Speaker of the House, Eli Raffleson, which certainly explains why Cale is working for him, and why they have such a good rapport.
Do it! Fucking look at him!
Seriously, Raoul.
Carol excuses Special Agent Todd from the room for a moment. She turns off the interview microphone and asks Cale a little more directly, "Why do you want to be in the Secret Service?" In response, he tells her that he can't think of a more important job than protecting the president.
See, John really does want to be just like Mike.
He does, but Carol, ever the bearer of bad news, breaks it to him rather harshly here. This job requires a university degree, John. And, Carol reminds Cale, you dropped out of GW after our first semester. You don't finish things. Coleslaw tells her that he took 2 years of college night school, and that his certification of graduation should be in his file. Just look. But Carol, again with the reminder, reminds John, you barely maintained a C average, John. Certainly nothing to be boasting about. J. Cale gets a little defensive, however. He snips that maybe it's because he didn't have the same study sessions that they used to have together back in college. And it's possibly a little bit of inappropriate interview talk there, Cale. I mean, your daughter is just outside the room. Carol continues to condemn Cale. She reads a notice from his senior officers.
Cale frequently does not complete his field reports on time. Sergeant Cale demonstrates a lack of respect for authority. Sergeant Cale has raw potential, but seems determined not to realize it.
Cale starts to become visibly frustrated, clearly beginning to see the writing on the wall. He tells Carol that he's changed, and he's not the kid that she used to know in college, and that he's also got more experience than any kid coming out of any Ivy League school.
It's not just about experience, it's about dependency.
But John just wants a chance, even if it means starting from the bottom. Carol won't budge, though, and it looks like Cale didn't pass his interview. This interview just seems so reminiscent of so many other interviews that I've seen in other movies before. It kind of feels like a trope at this point, but as far as I can tell, there's no real term for it. This sort of bad interview but shows potential scene. Frankly, this particular one just reminds me so much of Infinite, I can't even really help myself. But the whole dynamic of the trope, it's essentially an early movie scene which features your protagonist, usually an anti-hero, who gets torn apart at a job interview, in order to establish that, yes, they have skills A, B, and C, but because of social disorder D, they don't meet societal norms, and are subsequently not valuable. Then, heroically, throughout the course of the movie, we get to watch as the character grows and asserts their value, through killing people, and blowing things up, and really just showing what a boss they are, and what a mistake that interviewee made by not hiring this highly skilled but highly antisocial individual. John Cale comes out of this interview super defeated, knowing that he will have to show off how totally dependable he actually is, and what a good dad he is, and hopefully, maybe, by the end of this, a guy with a job as well. Emily asks how the interview went, and not wanting to ruin his daddy-daughter day and all the moments that they've built up to this point, he lies to her, like a good dad, and tells her that he's pretty sure he got the gig. He tries to leave some area for doubt, saying that the bigwigs need to talk about it, and it's all super political, but it seems to me like he doesn't really have any actual plan to reel this back, besides just shadily breaking into M later and hopefully just sweeping the whole mess under the rug. Meanwhile, while this is going down in another part of the White House, Presidential Detail member Martin Walker is conducting a meeting with the White House staff. He announces that the president will remain on the grounds, as he has a meeting with the congressional leadership. He asks if the First Lady is flying back in tonight, and the answer is yes, at 6:45 p.m. She and the president are supposed to have dinner together, at the residence. But Walker is aware of how indecisive the president is.
I want to know what's happening with that takeout situation.
Sir, we have studied the president's eating habits over the last 6 months, and we've procured a list of takeout locations that should satisfy any takeout request that the Eagle will throw at us.
There's no way you threw together a comprehensive list in that short of time. What about barbecue? What about burgers? What about bagels, bacon, and banh mi?
All accounted for, sir!
What about bratwurst and broccoli and blackberry biscuits with brie?
They're all present here too, sir! Even other foods, exotic foods, foods that start with letters like C, or even D!
What if the First Lady wants sushi?
Oh god, oh no! We didn't plan for sushi, sir! You idiot! The First Lady always chooses the takeout!
No, she doesn't. They roll for it.
They roll for it?
Yeah, they roll a dice to decide who gets to choose.
But Carol barges into the room. Her meeting with Cale now over, she reminds everyone that the First Lady swore off sushi, after an incident in Japan. A hush falls over the crowd. With the relief of knowing that sushi is off the table, the group can finally calm down. Secret Service Agent Walker is amazed to see Carol is still awake. Carol, in classic Carol fashion, reminds Walker of her two best friends, caffeine and patriotism. She honestly seems like a woman who knows both intimately, and I say that as someone who is a close acquaintance with caffeine. I'm a non-specific myself. Tea, energy drinks, yerba mate, whatever's clever, Heather. But Carol Finnerty, I've got her numbers right here. She's the coffee and Red Bull 5-hour energy type. She'd be a coffee purist, but it stopped doing the deed a while ago, and today I'd say that she's probably past the 24-hour mark at this point. Walker asked Carol about the threat matrix. It's a great question because the threats against the president have quadrupled since his speech this morning. Apparently, there's this guy in Buffalo. They're keeping an eye on him. Visitors today include the AV crew, the DC Sonic Boys, who are replacing the sound system in the theater. Walker awkwardly asks if the First Lady is coming back tonight. He locks eyes with Carol and vehemently asks a third time. Agent Hope, looking concerned, repeats his answer from earlier. 6:45 p.m. Walker's like, oh right, of course, duh. He brushes it off and reminds everyone that this is his last week at the White House and that he does not want any congratulatory cakes. But it's too late. There's already a cake. A cake with sparklers that's being wheeled in behind him. Agent Eli Walker, played by acting legend non-criminal James Woods, tells the room that he hates them. James Walker Woods hates that they got him this cake. Just like the Grinch, he is super grumpy that they are surprising him on his retirement. He gives in though. He relents. He acquiesces. He decides to enjoy a nice slice of cake with his staff before his complete and utter betrayal. Agent Hope gives Walker a gift certificate for a massage. He tries to belatedly act happy about this, but it's apparent that he is not very excited. I don't think his wife would approve. Carol tells Walker that she knows that he'll miss the job, and he grills her about not taking days off. But Carol's fine. She doesn't need a day off. Walker tells her that she should start dating again, and that she should have done so as soon as she got a divorce, and frankly, it's true. It's a rule. He tells her that if she keeps it up, 20 years from now, she'll look like him, which... it's frankly a terribly cutting jab. I would certainly hope not. Back with our gruesome twosome, Cale and Emily, Cale is just about to retrieve his weapon from the gun storage. A move that would have frankly saved us all a lot of time and trouble in this movie, but just at that precise moment, Em notices that the tour is about to begin, and Em's is super excited for it. She simply cannot contain herself. John and Emily join the rest of the tour group as Donnie, our dedicated tour guide, introduces himself. Behind them, the DC Sonic guys enter the building. The DC Sonic crew look around menacingly, while also keeping their heads down, as they don't want to be seen, but are also being kind of obvious, kind of like our suspicious redhead friend out in the Capitol building with the bomb. Unaware of what's going on around him, the tour guide begins his tour by telling us all about the White House and how it attracts guests from all around the world. He points to Cale and Emily and asks where they're from. Washington, D.C. Oops, bad choice. You, where are you from? The next family he picks is from Nebraska.
We're here to see the secret tunnels that JFK snuck Maryland through,
they proudly proclaim. But Donnie disappoints the lady by letting him know that the tunnels don't exist, and that JFK and Marilyn Monroe are just figments of his imagination. Don't worry, there are plenty of other exciting sights to show. Tour guide Donnie asks if anyone knows how old the White House is, and Emily is quick to answer 222 years old, which is obviously correct because Emily has looked up the White House on Wikipedia. She knows her shit.
Wikipedia is not an accredited source.
Well, Emily doesn't seem to care, and Donnie doesn't seem to notice. Donnie asks another question, which Emily gets right away again. John asks Emily if she gets picked on a lot in school, which Emily just looks aghast, telling him that no she doesn't. Donnie continues his tour, and Cale and Emily are discussing the fact that the White House is made up of 3 different but conjoined buildings. One is the East Wing, where they arrived, the West Wing, which houses the Oval Office and the executive offices, and the residential building, the famous building in the middle that got blown up in Independence Day, which is also another Roland Emmerich film. One guest points to an open room and asks Donnie what's in there, and he tells them it's the president's private theater. Cale takes a quick peek inside, but the DC Sonic guys, they don't like visitors, especially ones sticking their noses where they don't belong. Donnie pulls Cale back to the tour before anything can escalate. The DC Sonic guys check their watches. Looks like something's about to go down. One thing I do like about White House Down is how informative it is about the White House. Much more than Olympus Has Fallen was. Like, did you know that the White House is 6 stories tall with 132 rooms, 412 doors, 147 windows, 28 fireplaces, and 35 bathrooms? It also contains a basketball court, a putting green, a jogging track, and a swimming pool. Emily asks where the Peacock is, and apparently no one else knows what she's talking about. Tour guide Donnie tells the group for exposition reasons that the Peacock is the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, which is a bunker behind 10 feet of concrete and steel and capable of surviving a nuclear blast. However, Donnie informs Emily, the Peacock is the one room of the house that no one knows the location of. Emily just casually tells Donnie that WikiLeaks says that it's under the East Wing, and Donnie glares at her before turning and asking the group, who wants to see the bowling alley? It's at this moment that President Sawyer makes a surprise guest appearance on the tour, and the crowd goes wild. Emily, in all of her excitement, rushes forward and asks President Sawyer if she can ask him a question for her YouTube channel. President Sawyer agrees. And what does she ask? What does little Emily Cale ask? What does Ems ask the president on the fly and on the camera? The big question.
How do you expect 22 Arab nations with different regional and religious interests to agree on a single treaty? Especially considering the newly erupting conflicts between the Shiites and the Sunnis in southern Pakistan.
It's a tough question, really. Frankly, it's pretty biting and very direct, and it kind of just makes him look like a fool. I know his whole, we've got to try speech sounds inspiring, but honestly, it sounds like Ems has a much better grasp on the situation than the president does. And maybe he should back down a little bit and figure out what this 11-year-old thinks and possibly do what she thinks we need to do to address this whole regional conflict situation and manage it the best way possible. The president's answer, however, his answer, with honesty, he doesn't know. But he's got to try. Because the day we stop believing that different people can come together is the day we've given up on the world. And President Sawyer isn't ready to do that. But what he is willing to do is give a little girl named Emily a shout out on her YouTube blog. He says goodbye to the crowd, but Emily stops him to introduce her dad to him, who she informs him will be on his Secret Service detail. Cale is uncomfortable because Cale and President Sawyer both know that is not true. President Sawyer looks at Cale disapprovingly before whispering to him, "Stop lying to children." Back inside the White House proper, John Cale is looking at an oil painting of the White House burning down. Slightly ominous, and Donnie, our tour guide, tells him that it was painted by Tom Freeman as a commemoration of the burning of the White House back in 1814 by the British, during the poorly named War of 1812. And I will note it was burned down by the British, not the Canadians. I think that's the official go-to, although I did find out recently in researching this episode that apparently Canadians, not all Canadians, not all Canadians, but some Canadians, a few patriotic Canadians who believe in their country above America, understandably, because you're Canadian, not American, definitely like to lay claim that Canada burned down America's White House in 1812, which I will just say right off the bat, you've got the year wrong, it's 1814, so it couldn't have been right, but we'll get past the whole burning of the White House thing, I guess. So Emily announces to John and Donnie that she needs to avail herself in one of the White House's 35 bathrooms. Now Donnie, the tour guide, tells her that there's one downstairs that she can use. Cale volunteers to escort her down, but Emily's a grown, independent girl who don't need no man to help her pee. She can go all by herself. John Cale tells her not to go wandering, touching anything or talking to people that she shouldn't be talking to. And Emily, in turn, casts a glib smile back at him, and she says that she makes no promises before she saunters off. As we get back to Agent Walker with the rest of the presidential security detail, Walker's getting a little antsy, worried that President Sawyer is 7 minutes late. But literally before he can finish, Sawyer announces his good mornings to everyone. He asks if he can get Speaker of the House Eli Raffleson on the phone. Walker asks if President Sawyer and the missus have decided on where to go for dinner. Sawyer asks when he's ever known the missus to decide on anything, and after a chuckle, they share a little tender moment together, acknowledging how sad it is to see Walker go, but also letting him know that he understands that they've been having a hard time since their son's passing. "We all have sacrifices we have to make," says Agent Walker. A touching moment is interrupted by Sawyer's secretary, who has Raffleson on the line for him. On the phone with Raffleson, Sawyer tells Eli that if he were on board with his plan, that they would have a real shot at peace. But Eli reminds him his plan has upset the entire defense industry, who are powerful people that give money to both parties. Sawyer tells Raffleson that he's spoken to President al-Sharif, and that he's assured President Sawyer that he has proof to expose the people who are perpetuating the cycle of war in the Middle East, and that all of their wrongdoings, all of them, they're going to come out, and then they're not going to be able to do those wrongdoings anymore. Now, who is President al-Sharif? I've got no idea. We've never heard of him before, and we're never going to talk about him again. Importantly, what country is he actually in charge of? How did he come to power? Why do we actually believe him? Raffleson is unsure of the answer to all of these questions, and frankly so am I, but taking an aside for Sawyer and Ralph, we finally get back to Red Fox, the suspicious redhead inside the Capitol building that we were following earlier. He's pushing his janitorial cart around, and I'm sure that he's got a big old bomb hiding somewhere in there. Now Red Fox, he glances downward at his watch, and it is T-minus 1 minute remaining and counting. Meanwhile, at the same time, in the rotunda as well, Agent Kellerman is walking with a coffee carrier, filled with 2 cups of coffee, separate from the one in his right hand, and there's also a bag of what I assume is probably pastries. It's a lot to be carrying. He's smiling and making eyes at some girls walking his way. He takes the moment to glance at her backside and walks right into suspicious redhead's janitorial cart, spilling his coffee in the process, just all over the place, and he realizes that he's bumped into a janitorial cart and asks Red Fox,
"Since when do you guys come through here?"
And Red Fox responds,
"My supervisor told me to come this way."
He attempts to go back to pushing his cart, but Kellerman stops him. "Wait a minute." He pulls a napkin off the cart, dramatically wiping off the coffee that is spilled on his suit. But there's only 39 seconds until this bomb is gonna explode. Sensing the urgency in Red Fox's work, Kellerman tosses the napkin into his hamper and tells him to be careful next time. Kellerman enters Raffleson's office and delivers the coffee. Raffleson, still on the phone with Sawyer, he tells President Sawyer that he can't support his plan. Certainly not at the risk of leaving so much of their overseas U.S. military exposed. Cutting it a little too close there, James. Now back outside of the office, Red Fox has finally wheeled his bomb to its final destination, which is the rotunda of the Capitol building. And for those of you who don't know what a rotunda is, it's a large room with a dome at the top. Now, he drops off the cart in the very center of the room, walks away. A security guard notices this and tells him that, "Hey, you can't leave that cart there." But Red Fox, he isn't listening. He's got to get away. That bomb's about to explode. 5 seconds left, and 2 security guards approach the cart, giving it a good 6 feet of breathing room. And then all of a sudden,
"Hey, we got a maintenance guy over here in the rotunda. He's being real standoffish. I just want to make sure that he's okay. Seems like maybe he's having a bad day."
Flames fill the rotunda and burst out of the upper window. It's basically Independence Day, but done in reverse. And it's well played, Roland. Well played. We pan back to watch the explosion from outside. The shockwave rocks through nearby city streets, causing Carol to slam on her brakes, stopping dead in her tracks on her way home from the White House. She looks on in terror as the residential building behind her goes up in flames. She gets out of her car and pulls out her cell phone. It looks like a long day's about to get a lot longer for Carol Finnerty Wilkes. Back in the Capitol building, President Sawyer is still on the phone with Eli Raffleson. President Sawyer asks Eli if he's all right, hearing the sound of the explosion in the background, but there's no response. The line goes silent. Chaos erupts in the Capitol building as Kellerman searches the Speaker's office for Eli Raffleson. He finds him safely tucked behind his desk, a little shaken but otherwise all right. Kellerman begins to escort him off the premises. Eli Raffleson, Speaker of the House, emerges from his office, which is positioned just a few dozen yards from where this explosion has gone off in the Capitol building. Kellerman helps him to his feet, helping him to navigate the flames and debris as they both hastily exit Eli's office. Eli, whilst emerging from his still burning office, tells his secretary to get a hold of the vice president.
Damn it, Janet. I need Michael Murphy on the phone, and now.
You mean Vice President Hammond?
Yes, it's time to institute the continuity of government. Janet, have you gotten a hold of the vice president yet?
Sir, I've tried. He's been cut by some glass.
Well, stop dilly-dallying and march yourself over there. Chop, chop. No time to waste, Janet. The future of our democracy is at stake.
But, sir, I think my leg is broken.
Well, I'll tell you what, Janet. Here's a broom. And just because the future of our democracy is at stake, I'll even let you use my swivel chair. Now, I'll just give you a little push to get you started. And off we go.
But, sir, the rotunda is on fire.
Damn it, Janet, where's your sense of adventure?
Back in the White House, Agent Walker rushes into the Oval Office to tell President Sawyer that there's been an explosion in the Capitol building. Walker begins locking down the White House and issuing orders to evacuate any non-essential personnel. President Sawyer seems distraught and dismayed that someone is actually carrying out an attack simply because of his Middle Eastern peace plan. The tour group, John Cale amongst them, are escorted down to the Blue Room, per Agent Walker's strict instructions. Cale objects, however, distressed by this news because Emily, you remember, is still off in one of the 35 bathrooms somewhere relieving herself. She could be peeing anywhere right now. Somewhere downstairs, upstairs, in the basement. There's so many bathrooms in so little time. John, obviously distressed, tries to leave the safety and security of the Blue Room, but the Secret Service agents won't let Cale leave the room. We transition over to the theater room, ready to check back in on the DC Sonic crew, right as they are getting ready to crank up the dials. They appear to be watching some old war movie on the screen. One of the presidential security agents enters the room and tries to tell the audio jerks to pack it up and get going. The White House is on lockdown. It's time to get out of here. He tries to escort the guys out of the building. Their leader, however, Stens, played by Jason Clarke, turns up the volume on the speakers to an insane height and tells him he can't hear him. As the agent approaches and tells him to shut the movie down, Stinley quickly comes at him with a nail gun. Another DC Sonic goon comes up from behind the White House security detail and grabs him from around the neck. Taking a nail gun, Stens quietly unloads a series of carefully placed framing nails directly into his sternum. The agent's eyes roll white. His body goes limp, and the DC Sonic comic goon from behind him gently lowers him to the floor. The goon grabs the sidearm of the now super dead security detail agent and tosses the silenced pistols to Stens. Stens twists the silencer on the sidearm, re-securing it. So the DC Sonic guys, their plan, going swimmingly. Step 1, of course, set up the home theater. Step 2, kill a single low security detail member. Step 3, steal his sidearm. Fortunately, Step 4 requires leaving the totally home theater that you just set up right in the middle of your favorite World War I movie. But Sten sternly turns away from passive glory, setting this flick aside for a later time so that he can start in on his own path to glory. He and the other DC Sonic guys exit the theater room, and Stens eyes down a desk detail at the end of the hallway, taking careful but quick aim, and unloads 2 precisely positioned precision shots into the guard's chest before he has any chance to react. Stens picks up another dead guard's gun, this time tossing his silenced sidearm off to one of his cohort comrades. The group moves along, rounding about a corner, Stens shooting another dignified member of the White House desk detail. They tap on a door and announce to all inside that there's a security sweep. The DC Sonic men ready their firearms, and the minute the door opened, they unload fire on the unsuspecting security officers that lay behind the door. It makes you wonder if they knew there were going to be security officers behind the door because they gunned them all down within seconds, just gunning them down with systematic gunfire. This part of the plan complete, the guards all disposed of before they could even be dispatched, Stens tells the group their next orders. 30 seconds. Secure aircom. Meet at the rally. Part of the group moves downstairs. Using one of the guards' keycards, they easily access the armory. They fire as they enter. shooting through the wire mesh that separates half the room with the high-powered weaponry from the half without it, killing the guards inside instantly. They swipe themselves into the armory, where they start dispersing some much more high-powered weaponry between them. Let's go! Let's move! Move! The DC Sonic goons start making their way upstairs, narrowly passing by Emily Kale as she ducks behind a wall. She cautiously checks her phone for text messages from John. Nothing. Concerned he might try to call again and get her killed, she turns off her phone. Kale, with the extrasensory perception of any decent father with a young teenage daughter, instantly detects a disturbance in the force. He tries to call Emily.
Hi, you've reached the voicemail of Emily Kale. Why aren't you texting me?
And of course, instead of texting, John leaves a voice message on her phone for her to call him back. And it's like, yeah, John, sure. She's just gonna check her mailbox in between dodging the terrorists, exposing their secret plot to the country, and stopping a nuclear strike on the White House. And I mean, I'm not a big texting fan either, but I think she's made it pretty clear that that's her preferred method of communication. And considering the circumstances, I think it might just be worth giving it a try. Back outside, back out on the streets, Kale is trying to get in contact with Agent Walker, because she needs to know what is happening, and if he has the president. Walker confirms that he does in fact have the president, and he instructs Carol to call the WFO and have them send reinforcements. He wants a hard perimeter around the White House. At the south gate of the White House, many of the guests are being successfully evacuated out of the building, but back inside, the DC Sonic guys have successfully infiltrated Castle Sky, breaking into the room that manages rooftop security at the White House. And they shoot 3 more security guards as they pass through. They grab sniper rifles from their cases as they go, and making their way onto the rooftop, they shoot pre-positioned snipers in their back and position themselves in the same spot the White House snipers were just in. From those rooftop positions, they begin to snipe the agents and police officers on the ground. Around the perimeter of the White House, the agents try to escort the civilians to safety, but the DC Sonic boys just continue their attack. Inside the White House proper, Kale can hear through the agents' walkies that shots are being fired both inside and out, and getting increasingly more frustrated that the agents in the Blue Room are not doing anything. Much of this, I'm sure, stemmed from the fact that his daughter is outside, not with him. One agent, sensing Kale's agitation and frustration in regards to the situation with his daughter, he comes over, he tries to help. He tries to help calm Kale down and, just being a good guy, just tries to diffuse the situation. By pulling his sidearm out and pointing it right at Kale's face and essentially threatening to shoot him if he doesn't stop freaking out about his daughter. Which, I mean, that's like 101 right there. That's why we have such effective mental health resources in our country right now. We know that there's a time when you just gotta tell somebody having an emotional episode to just shut up, or I'll shoot you in the face. And that works. It just works, It just works. Works like 12% of the time. You just threaten to shoot them in the face, and they just shut up and stop causing problems. And it works like 12, maybe 10% of the time. But John, he doesn't get that memo. And like some kind of psychopath, he just yells at the man pointing a gun at his face and insinuates that he should be out there dealing with the terrorists, instead of threatening to shoot the civilians, which, I mean, that's a stretch. I mean, come on, John. Dealing with terrorists is hard. Shooting civilians, that's easy work. So security detail agent Mean Mike over here isn't about to go off on some crazy attempt to be a cowboy or something. He's going to stay right here. Probably not even have to shoot more than 2 or 3 of these tour members to keep them in line. And frankly, I mean, Mean Mike calls himself Mean Mike, and he likes to act tough, but frankly, he hates shooting firearms. It's practical. It makes his fingers hurt. He's got real bad arthritis, so if he could stay here and not have to spend the whole day going pew pew pew, that would be wonderful. Might not even have to shoot any civilians. Might be able to get away with just lightly pistol whipping a juvenile. That always seems to get people's attention. Much gentler on the digits, too. Mean Mike contemplates all of this while John C. M.C. Coleslaw tries to pull some information from our main tour guide, Donnie. Donnie D assures Kale that Emily's safe, no matter where she's being, because the White House is the safest house in the world.
Not today, it's not. And if my little girl can't pee in safety, then no one can.
Downstairs, Emily, all finished peeing, sees the police in the hallway and, thank God, safety. You can see the relief in her eyes, just knowing that the good guys are here and everything's gonna be alright. Room secured. Sadly, all the police are shot down by the DC Sonic guys in a surprise ambush, and once all the police are dead, the AV squad mask up and head outside to let in their own reinforcements of baddie no-good Nicks through the south gate. Emily sees all of this, and like a good Lois Lane or Mary Jane in training, she busts out her phone, and the moment Stins takes off his mask, she starts filming. We can hear security personnel over the radio.
Snipers on the roof of the castle, do not engage! Do not engage!
Stins exits the White House through the front door and re-emerges dragging a giant metallic container behind him. Following behind him, we get to meet Mr. Tyler, played by Jimmy Simpson, the movie's resident hacker extraordinaire. And Mr. Tyler's dressed flamboyantly in a black turtleneck, tight leather jacket, and stylish little glasses to go with it. He tells Stins,
I love what you've done with the place. The bullets really add to the decor of the White House.
One of Stins' other men, Killer Commander Carl Kulik, played by Kevin Rankin, bursts into the room, all hyped up from the excitement outside. Almost like Raoul.
There's no one like me. Nobody.
Did you even see what my boy did out there? Woo!
Yeah, I saw. And it looked more like your boy Redbox from the Demolitions Man. Wow.
Where are my hostages then? Woo!
If you don't know, then they're really not your hostages, are they then? Woo!
Kale, in an attempt to find out where Emily is. What's going on with Emily? Is Emily okay? Did she get to go pee? Is Emily the terrorist? And of course, the answer to the question we're all asking. Is all of this happening because John C. McHale didn't go to his daughter's flag-twirling exposition? He desperately dials his daughter, determined to try and find out. He successfully gets Emily on the phone. He doesn't want to ask, but he has to ask. And thankfully, she reassures him. She is not a terrorist.
Are you sure?
Yes, John, I'm sure. I'm not a terrorist.
And the flag twirling?
Well, I'm still upset about the recital. It's called a recital, by the way, John. But no, I didn't become a terrorist because you missed my color guard recital. And no, I didn't bomb the White House just because you didn't show up. Ugh, I'm not that petty, John.
Wait, I thought you said you didn't care that I missed your flag-twirling recital.
John, learn some subtext.
Wait, what subtext?
Jeez, John.
Emily tries to warn her dad about the dangers of the DC Comics Sonic Enforcers, but Kale is more worried about whether or not Emily is alright. Which, makes you wonder why he would call in the first place. I get the temptation. I get the media temptation to call your kid to find out if they're okay, but why, for the love of God, would you actually try and make that call? I mean, you would think you might stop for one moment and think to yourself, hey, this is a crisis situation. There are terrorists everywhere. My daughter went to go pee-pee and hasn't returned, and maybe she just might be hiding somewhere, and calling her cell phone could, I don't know, give away her position and cause her to be killed or taken hostage or beaten or who knows what. And conservatively, if you just had to, had to send some form of communication, right? Because you're her dad. You could always text her, like she's always been asking you to do. This would be a really good time to actually take your daughter's advice and give texting a try. And it really just shows what a good idea it would have been, because their phone call is cut short right as Commander Keelik kicks open the door. Commander Keelik kicks open the door and he guns down Mean Mike the security detail before he and his arthritis fingers even have the slightest chance to react. Chaos ensues as people fall to the floor, trying to avoid any pursuing gunfire. Commander Keelik boots another terrorist to the floor as he scans the room for any more agents. Both down on the floor, hiding from any potential gunfire in the room, John C. and Mikhail Coleslaw whispers to Donnie D. Darko, demanding to know where the damn tour guide sent his daughter. Now all of a sudden, Donnie knows exactly what restroom Emily is peeing in. A question I guess we're all wondering at this point. Downstairs, across the hall, second room on the left, just in case you really needed to know. Now, right as Donnie D. answers Johnny C., another White House security agent enters the room from behind. His not-so-secret attack is abruptly averted as Commander Keelik promptly guns him down. The agent falls to the floor,
and Kale takes the opportunity to rush forward, pick up the gun, and dive roll into the next hallway, avoiding all of the DC Sonic guys' gunfire. In a mad dash, Johnny C runs for his life as Killick follows after him. Killick runs into the next room to kill him, but another agent appears, distracting Commander Killick and drawing his gunfire. Killick starts shooting at him, killing him before he has a chance to react, but our master of disaster, John C. and Mikhail Coleslaw, is long gone by now. Back at the Capitol building, Carol is back and she's back in charge. And this is going to be a long day for Carol Finnerty Wilkes, but her country is calling. And screw the cost of their call and collect, because she's a patriot, god. And real patriots accept the charges.
Pulling back to an aerial view of DC, we now watch what is another scene that could have been cut just directly from Olympus Has Fallen without anybody noticing at all. We watch as a Marine One helicopter approaches the White House in what is supposed to be an attempt to land atop the roof and escort the president out of the basement. But obviously that plan makes no sense, and DC Sonic, obviously being film buffs, we literally watched them set up a private theater in a matter of minutes. The DC Sonic guys, they'd already seen Olympus Has Fallen, long before they made their plans, and so they knew. They knew they needed to secure the White House roof, so they had gunners already stationed on top of the rooftops, just in case, just in case any Gerald Butler style shenanigans looked like they were about to go down. So as the Marine One helicopter approaches the White House, the sad sacks inside are immediately gunned down by the stationed DC Sonic snipers on the rooftop, shooting the choppers out of the sky with little to no effort with some anti-aircraft artillery. With the air evac all exploded out of the picture, Agent Walker convinces the president to go down to the bunker, assuring the commander-in-chief that he can escort him safely to the PEOC. Despite armed men already breaching the building and securing the majority of it, and despite the explosions that should be felt throughout the building. Downstairs, Kale is stalking the hallways, heading to the girls' bathroom, looking for Emily, but as soon as he finds the fabled female restroom, one of the DC Sonic guys notices him, and begins unloading bullets in his direction. John ducks into the bathroom, and the DC Sonic comic man bursts in behind him, where he finds Kale, cowering and crying on the floor. John M.C. McHale cowers, crying, begging to the young thug not to kill him. He tells the supersonic comic thug that he was just someone on the tour. Stop shooting, please. The thug yells at him, "You had a gun."
It was just a phone.
And just like any true action hero, just like any real man, in between his tears and his cries for mercy, he just busts out a pistol and savagely shoots the Sonic Commando in the chest.
Yeah, take that! You think you're tough, you little... Hello, who's tough now?
The DC Sonic thug tries to shoot at him, but his shots flail as he falls to the ground. Cake stands up and realizes that his phone has been shot, and he still hasn't found Emily. Channing McHale jumps to his feet and just starts savagely kicking the dead DC comic goon. Kale ducks down to grab the baddie's rifle. He hears something coming from the no-good ne'er-do-well's radio. "Keep the ground floor clear. We have the package." And he is on the move. And with a quick glance outside, Kale realizes that the package is, of course, the president. Just like in Olympus Has Fallen. Like, how funny is that? Amongst the many, many coincidences, Olympus Has Fallen has the codename for the president as the full package, as where this movie just has him as the package. The president, Agent Walker, and really everyone except for Parker King arrives at the presidential PEOC at just about this exact moment. They're ready to seal away Jamie Foxx until everything is safe. The whole group arrive, walking up to one of the bookshelves. It's a super secret bookshelf with a super secret scanner, which scrolls down. President James Sawyer Fox takes off his glasses, and the super secret retinal scanner scans his retinals to make sure that these are the eyes of a patriot. And after running several very complicated security programs that the artificial intelligence embedded into the president's bookcase, it takes a few moments and then determines...
Analysis of the anterior chamber of the eye complete. Heroism 92%. Loyaltiness 88%. Patriotical particles 101%. Welcome home, President Sawyer.
The door opens, welcoming the president and his allies to the totally tight digs of the presidential PEOC. Meanwhile, We cut away for a brief moment to show the Vice President as he boards in Boeing Air Force One 747. The captain comes over the intercom. We're sorry in advance there, President Hammond, but this is gonna be a bumpy ride. We're gonna be taking this ostrich to 30,000 feet in 45 seconds. Which I thought was like complete and total nonsense, right? But I apparently was wrong. Again, I know this is likely to shock, even probably break some of your hearts. But once again, I'm tragically going to have to inform you that I am not, nor have I ever been, a licensed pilot. Now, thankfully, Ed here has done a little flying this day, so I think I'm just gonna step back. I'll let Ed handle this one. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ed's Corner, where we talk about all kinds of stuff. But today we're going to discuss the feasibility of a plane taking off and reaching 30,000 feet in 45 seconds. Which, it's pretty fast. And I'm not sure if there was an issue with their calculations or something. But even accounted for the fact that they clearly just begun taking off? So accounting for its takeoff speed of 160 knots, that there being a Boeing 747, that would be breaking flight records set all the way back in the 60s. And that's back when Major Walter Fletcher Daniels set 4 FAI time to altitude records, with the Northrop T-38A40NO talent. And I mean, they'd be going way faster than him. It took Fletcher just a fraction of a second over a minute to hit that kind of height. And when he did, he was pretty much just riding a rocket with wings. Almost reminds me of a horse I had once. The President, Walker, and the rest of Sawyer's presidential detail go downstairs where they confront their next obstacle. That's right. The first super secret, super secure door was only the pre-security door in what we now know is a doubly super secure, super safe 2-door system. The second door, in a key system even more demanding than the first, requires the President to not only remember but also recite his full name.
Please recite your name.
I'm James William Sawyer.
Access denied. Access can only be granted to President.
I'm James William Sawyer. That's me! That's me! Man, I'm President James William Sawyer!
Access denied. Cannot grant access to President. That's me! That's me! I'm President James William Sawyer! I am so sorry, President Sawyer. Access is denied. Access can only be granted to President
James William Sawyer. God damn this stupid thing! Will someone fix this stupid hunk of junk?
Self-destruct sequence activated.
Oh God! Will someone fix this stupid thing?
Self-destruct in 40 seconds. 39, 38, 37, 36, 35, 34, 33, 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, 29, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 16, 14, 12, 10, 9.
God damn, you stupid computer! I am the President! President James William Sawyer, stupid and I command you to stand down!
Voice sequence accepted. Welcome back, President James William Sawyer! Stupid Self-destruct sequence aborted.
Wait, that is not my name! Change my name back to James William!
Changing identification records to match. All personnel records have been updated. Welcome back, President. Wait, that's not my name! Change my name back to James!
Getting in is, like I said, it's a difficult task. I mean, maybe not as difficult as I make it out to be. Honestly, I don't know exactly how the PIOC actually works, but it seems to me like having multiple locks and barriers to reaching safety might not be the best plan. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get the multiple locks thing. But wouldn't you want to be able to shuffle the President in there as quickly as possible without having to worry about him getting caught up at one of the multiple locking systems? Again, don't know. Maybe they have this, but it seems dumb to me. I feel like the biggest concern is being able to get the President in the PIOC and then lock down the PIOC. I don't know how concerned we honestly need to be about people trying to sneak in there, like, on their own accord. I mean, it's a great destination with its cold concrete walls and whatnot, but beyond the real big American history buffs, I can't imagine the need to break into the PIOC, unless it already has the President in it. Which, again, like, if he's in there, he should be able to lock it down. I don't really feel like keeping multiple locking systems active is a great idea. I mean, if the president's in the Peoc and someone's trying to open the door, the outer door, with his eye scan, I feel like maybe that eye scan shouldn't really register. Like, maybe that lock should be able to be disabled from inside once the president is in there, right? Just disable it because he is inside. And worst case scenario, somebody sneaks into the Peoc to have a super secret, super patriotic birthday party. I mean, you can deal with that person from inside the Peoc. Because really, if some ne'er-do-well locks himself in there without any hostages, there's really not a lot he can do in there beyond observing the ground. I'm sure the place has its own generator and all those fun things, but I don't think the Peoc is really kind of any staging area for any kind of White House defense system beyond those that have to be managed through other people. So really, I think we can do away with the outside lock on this second door and simply have an interior lock on this one. You know, you can keep the super secret bookshelf, that's fine and everything like that, but I think one lock and then the president's in and we're all good. And then we wouldn't have to worry about the president getting inconveniently held up by the plot so that one of his guards can all of a sudden turn code and kill his remaining security detail in a bizarre and not really believable bit of redemption for his dead son that he loved. But, you know, also didn't really love enough not to send to war. But, you know, luckily throughout all the bloodshed and all the dead security guards, we do actually learn James Sawyer's middle name. It's William. It's William. Well with the lives. Super good news in case he ever tries to Rumpelstiltskin us. Not something we need right now, but something that's always good to have. And just for that, Agent Martin Walker also reveals himself to have the full name as well. His middle name is James. He's Martin James Walker. Also, he's a traitor.
Sorry, Ted. But I never liked gift certificates.
Wait! I thought you'd like a massage.
A couple lessons for your next life, Ted. 1. I love my wife. 2. Cash is accepted everywhere. Oh, come on. How are you still alive, Ted?
Please, Martin. We can work this out.
There's nothing to work out, Ted. I've shot you 6 times.
You only shot me 5 times.
Huh. Is that right? 1 left.
Agent Martin Walker really breaks his own bad acting streak here as he shoots down 6 or so of his own security detail agents. Just cleanly, concisely, killing people on the left, the right, and even a couple of people right behind the president. All without touching a hair on the president's head, mind you. Ted being the only one among them, for some reason I don't know what Ted did to Martin, but he's the only one that requires more than 1 shot. President Sawyer is obviously shocked that Walker has betrayed not only him, but his country as well, and Walker just looks at him sternly and tells him to consider this my resignation. And while Kale is out, still stuck stalking the hallways looking for Emily, Agent Walker is already radioing in on Stens on the walkie.
Hey, I got the package, Stens.
The full package?
Wrong movie. This is a regular package, Stens. This full package was the first production. Our producers picked a much more popular package.
Package was predicted to be more popular than full package?
Not predicted, Private. It was proven to be precisely 48% more popular based on reported box office revenues.
But wasn't Olympus Has Fallen's revenue understated by approximately $11 million?
Possibly, Private, but even accounting for that, package is still assuredly the more concise and strictly better code name.
Wow. Great movie, though.
Yeah, great movie for sure.
Yeah, that villain was just, so scary, man.
I know. He was, terrifying. What country was he from?
I think he was North Korea, I think.
Oh, my God.
I know, right?
Terrifying.
And why was that villain trying to take over the White House?
Landmine killed his mom. Freedom killed his dad. Not sure why else.
And why are you doing it?
Hey, just because my son died in Iraq doesn't mean...
Iran. Your son died in Iran.
Hey, my son. He was my son.
Your son.
Martin Walker tells Stens that he has the package, regular package, and instructs Stens on how to get to the Peoc.
Emil, what are you talking about? Bobby's dead. And no good tourists took him out, remember? We gotta get our plan underway. Then you can get your revenge. Do you hear me?
I know. I just thought maybe he was trying to radio me from, beyond the grave or something.
Oh, for f***'s sake. Oh, okay.
This is Daddy, Stens. And, you gotta go finish what we started, okay? So just listen to Martin. Do whatever he tells you to do. Okay?
Oh my god, Bobby, it is you! I've missed you so much, bro. You're like the yin to my yang, the Chuck to my Norris, man, the Skip to my Lou.
And just as Kale hears this through his intercepted walkie-talkie, he finds the library. He's a little reluctant to enter at first, a little afraid of ghosts, but he enters through the library and crosses over, seeing the giant sliding bookcase door slid far open, and then enters into the presidential peoc, that large concrete chamber where we have the double back set of prefabricated metal mesh stairs that lead down to the other super secret, super stupid lock that allowed Walker the time that he needed to kill all the other security agents. Well, now John M.C. McHale Coleslaw is down there with them. Well, up there with them because he's up at the top of the stairs watching as Walker holds the president at gunpoint. President James William Sawyer demands to know what Walker wants. He's getting a little cocky considering how many people Walker just killed. And Walker wonders out loud what William Sawyer thinks that he wants. It's at this point that President James realizes what this is really all about. Amazingly enough, this is really about the death of Walker's son. That's right, yeah. The whole terrorist plot, all of the deaths, the explosion, poor Ted back there with the double shot, or the sixth shot, all of this is just a way to avenge the death of security agent Martin Walker's dead beloved son, Kevin. Understandably, of course, why Walker would be so upset. Kevin it's a pretty sweet name, and I'm sure it took him and the missus at least a day and a half to land on it. And when they lost that son with that beloved name, how are you going to come up with a name to replace a name like Kevin? It's terrible. But before Walker can elaborate any further on his naming process and the difficulty, the emotional pain that it took him, honestly, right as he's dumping this very helpful exposition directly related to the motives behind the attack, things that the protagonist would need to know. Before he can let any more of that sweet exposition gumbo out, our wannabe security officer, John M.C. McHale Coleslaw, he just opens up fire on Agent Walker. And misses. Misses every single shot because, frankly, Kale, for as spirited and as gung-ho and goodwill hunting he's a terrible shot. He's a terrible shot. We just watched Martin Walker shoot and land every single shot that he wanted to make, just as breezy as you could want it to be. But old J-Sauce, he's not a good shot. He's good-willed, but over and over throughout this film, it is established and confirmed that Cole's familiarity with firearms is fleeting at best. He shoots. He misses. But it does allow him the opportunity to separate Sawyer from Walker and guide the president back to safety. Throughout the gunfight, the president manages to get onto his feet, run over to the steel railing stairs, and climbs up the set of double stairs, all while avoiding gunfire, somehow managing to make it to Kale, without Kale accidentally shooting him in the process, because frankly I don't really think it's Martin Walker's fire that Sawyer needs to be concerned about here. We established Walker to be a very good shot, and based off of his recent gunplay, I'd say he's not super likely to accidentally shoot the president here. Walker knows his target. It's Coleslaw over here that we really need to be concerned about. I think he's prudent enough to try very hard to not accidentally kill the president, but whether or not he will succeed in that plan, that's always the gambit. He's kinda just spraying bullets. Just shooting broadly and hoping for the best, but thankfully our foxy President James was able to dodge all of the gunfire, make it up both sets of stairs and back into the presidential library. But with Walker unable to answer his walkie, Emil Stins is now very concerned. He's not going to lose another man like he lost Bobby. And now that Bobby's a ghost, he's going to have to exorcise the whole White House once this thing is done. So Bobby can finally be at peace. Mission at hand, Stins marches forward quickly, making his way down the stairs and around the corner into the third door on the left. All out of bullets, and with Stins fast approaching, Kale has to think fast. Stins enters the library and crosses the room, calling out to Walker as he walks. But as Stins walks closer to Walker, Coleslaw quickly ducks out from behind a corner as he decks Stins in the face with the butt of his gun, knocking Stins to the floor. Another lackey tries to calculate and tackle Kale, but Kale's too fast. He grabs him and flips him around, the lackey's gun now clearly in Kale's control. Another DC comic goon enters the room, and Kale, still holding the DC Sonic Thug's automatic rifle, squeezes the trigger. doing his very best to point the gun vaguely in the direction of the bad guys. The gun goes off and starts firing bullets into the wall, the bookshelves lining it, and as well the DC comic goon who just happened to be standing in the way. Cale yells for Sawyer to run, elbows the lackey into unconsciousness. Stins slowly regains consciousness, and looking around the room, Stins is mad. He's mad with the loss of the package. He's mad that he got elbowed in the nose, and he's really mad. Really mad that his best AV guy, Bobby, is no longer with us. Cale and Sawyer run down the hallway. But Emil Stins is hot on their trails, chasing after them. As Stins rounds about the corner, he unleashes a barrage of gunfire. But John and James are too quick. They duck around a corner, avoiding Stins' gunfire, sadly drawing the attention of the other guards. All out of other options and adjacent to an elevator, Cale begins exchanging gunfire with the DC comic goons while Sawyer calls for the elevator, which just arrives excruciatingly slowly. They enter the elevator, but when Emil decides he's going to go off and chase them down on his own, Walker steps in and tells him to buck up and act like a man. They're all going to stick to the plan. When Emil Stins orders his men to cut them off in the central hall, Walker orders Emil to come with him. Emil's men continue to climb up the stairs trying to catch the elevator, but to no avail. Stins begins angrily blaming this all on Walker, assuming that Cale is one of his guys, but Walker tells Stins that Cale isn't one of his, and that he was probably some smuck from the tour. Well, that smuck killed one of Stins' best men, and he's pissed about it. Walker orders him to come with him, and to have his men sweep the place. Now that the lackeys are side-lacked, Emil has a chance to vent his frustrations to Martin. Now that the elevator is available again, Emil Stins pulls Walker inside of it, instantly getting very angry with him for the way Walker was talking to him in front of his men. Alone, in the elevator, Stins just yells at Walker.
You don't ever talk to me like that in front of my men.
What?
No, you don't.
What are you so upset about?
10 years. 10 years I've known Bobby. Twice he saved my life. First time I had a job down in Maui. You ever seen a cane spider, Martin? Huh? You ever seen a f***ing cane spider, Martin? It's the size of your fist. We're in a hotel, just about to fall asleep. We're watching Lucy. You know that Scarlett Johansson movie, Lucy? Just comes running across the f***ing room. Biggest f***ing cane spider I've ever seen in my life. I was paralyzed, Martin. I was f***ing frozen. And Bobby, like a knight in shining f***ing armor, he just comes running over and steps on that monster arachnid before he even has a chance to scamper under the bed, where we both know he was gonna wait for us to fall asleep. And then after Maui, after that, I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling out of sorts. After that, Bobby takes me to a Tai Chi class in Sunnyside, California. And in 35 minutes, I learn how to balance my chakras and bam, back on the path to success. So that's twice Bobby saved my life. Bobby's calling to me from beyond the grave, and you want me to ignore it? He wants vengeance, and this will not go unanswered. I will get my vengeance, and I will answer that call.
No, you will not. You will come with me, and you will stick with the plan.
Yeah, I'll stick with something, all right.
Well, good. As long as we're getting something done.
I don't know who Walker thinks he is, but Stins is much bigger than him, and is rightfully more angry because his friend Bobby of 10 years was just killed by Cale, and it was Walker's fault for letting them get away. Walker continues to play the tough guy act with Stins here, and reminds him that he knows what the country did to him, and that they're in this together. Stins says that he's going to go kill Cale for what he did to Bobby, and Walker says he doesn't care what Stins does with Cale as long as he keeps the president alive, and that they complete their mission, of course. And I don't know about you, but nothing really screams terrifying villain to me like somebody who just constantly directs his lackeys to not pursue or harm the protagonists. I mean, Emil does say he's going to go kill Channing Tatem, and Agent Walker does tell him he doesn't care about that, but he says it in a dismissive way, like, sure, do what you want as soon as you've gotten all of your other work done, and I've got nothing else for you to do. Like, then, maybe we can talk about this whole bad guys hunting down the good guys bit later, if we have time. And to raise the stakes even higher, John the MC and our Commander-in-Chief were both hiding in the exact same elevator shaft atop the elevator and clearly out of sight, so they've been listening in during this whole conversation. Yeah, they never actually re-entered the White House proper. They've just been chilling on top of the elevator shaft this whole time. which means they know exactly how low the stakes actually are at this point.
Oh no, is that the end of the episode? No, it's just the end of part 3 of our 5-part mega battle. Stay tuned to part 4 to find out if Stins gets revenge for his dead friend. Will Walker walk away from his treasonous malfeasance? Or will some schmuck from the tour group actually be able to save America, find a job, and financially secure a future from him and his overly patriotic daughter? Tune into part 4 of the Olympus Has Fallen vs. White House Down mega battle to find out.
When did we start calling it a mega battle?
Probably somewhere around the time I realized it was going to be like an 8-hour episode.
Ah, good call. Much better branding.
Thanks.